Friends, please check if you're already subscribed to the channel. Your subscription is very important to us. We need to reach 1,000 subscribers to generate income and continue with the channel. Now, let's get to the video. I noticed the empty seats before I noticed anything else. Before the applause. Before the speeches. Before the smell of perfume and fresh paper programs. Absence has a way of announcing itself when you've known it your whole life. 3 seats. Front row. Center section. Close enough that I would have been able to see my mother's face clearly. Close enough that my father could have lifted his phone just a little higher to record me walking across the stage. Those seats weren't randomly empty. They were waiting for someone. For my someone. I sat perfectly still in my chair, hands folded over my lap, the heavy fabric of the gown pressing against my shoulders. Around me, excitement buzzed, nervous laughter, whispered jokes, people craning their necks to spot family members. I tried not to look again. Then I looked again. Still empty. I told myself not to panic. My parents were late for everything. Always had been. Growing up, birthdays started without them. School plays began with me scanning the back of the room, hoping they'd slip in quietly after the lights dimmed. They'll show up, I told myself. They always show up, eventually. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No texts. I adjusted my cap. Smoothed the crease in my gown. Crossed my ankles, uncrossed them, then crossed them again. My heart was beating faster than it should have been for someone sitting down. Every time the auditorium doors opened, my breath caught. Every time, it wasn't them. The dean stepped up to the microphone, smiling wide, voice full of pride and ceremony. Today, he said, we celebrate not only the graduates, but the families who supported them every step of the way. Families. Support. Every step. The words echoed in my chest like something misplaced. Like a language I half understood but never fully spoke. Because my path here wasn't paved with constant encouragement. It was built in fragments, late nights, early mornings, scholarships I hunted down myself, jobs I couldn't afford to quit. I had learned early how to clap for myself quietly. As the ceremony began, I focused on my breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Don't cry. Not here. Not today. Names were called. One by one. Each graduate rose to a wave of cheers that felt personal, intimate. Parents stood up, screaming names, waving signs, crying openly. I watched it all like an outsider. When my row stood, my hands were cold. My legs moved before my mind caught up. Step by step, heels clicking too loudly on the floor, I walked toward the stage. The lights hit my eyes, blinding me, but instinctively, I searched anyway. I searched for familiarity. For my mother's posture, always leaning slightly forward when she was proud. For my father's hesitant smile, the one he wore when he didn't quite know how to show emotion. Nothing. Just strangers clapping for a stranger. I smiled anyway. I always smiled anyway. The diploma felt heavier than paper when they placed it in my hands. The photographer told me to turn slightly, to hold it higher, to smile. Click. That moment would live forever as proof I succeeded, without showing what was missing just outside the frame. When I sat back down, something inside me settled into a dull ache. Not sharp. Not dramatic. Just heavy. Familiar. The ceremony dragged on. Minutes blurred together. I clapped when appropriate. Stood when told. Sat when told. When it finally ended, the room exploded into movement. Families rushed forward, hugging, crying, taking pictures. Laughter bounced off the walls. I stayed seated longer than I needed to. I pretended to fix my tassel. pretended to smooth my gown. Pretended I wasn't waiting for footsteps behind me. For arms around my shoulders. For someone to say, "We're here. We saw you." My phone vibrated. I almost didn't check it. A text. From my mother. "Hey baby, 2 hearts, congrats on graduating. We're so proud of you." I stared at the screen, my throat tightening. Pride delivered through a screen felt thin. Flat. Like an echo instead of a voice. Then another message came through. "Listen, can we talk later? Your dad and I need a small loan. Nothing crazy." The words landed harder than I expected. "No, sorry. No, we didn't make it. No, are you okay? Just money." I read it again. Then again. The realization crept in slowly, like cold seeping into bone. They hadn't missed this moment accidentally. They had made a choice. I stood up, slipped my phone into my bag, and walked out of the auditorium alone. Behind me, applause still echoed, applause meant for a version of me my parents never bothered to witness. As the doors closed, a thought settled deep in my chest, uncomfortable and undeniable. If they could ignore this, what else had they taken from me without asking? I didn't reply to my mother right away. I walked to my car like my body was on autopilot, like my mind had stepped outside of itself and left the rest of me to finish the day. The parking lot was packed with families taking pictures beside vehicles decorated with balloons and "congrats" signs. I passed a father lifting his daughter off the ground, spinning her in circles. I passed a mother fixing lipstick on her son's cheek, crying like she couldn't stop even if she wanted to. I kept my face neutral. Not because I wasn't feeling anything, but because I was feeling too much, and I didn't trust myself to let any of it spill in public. The sun hit the fabric of my gown. Heat built under the polyester. My cap pinched my braids. My hands were still holding my diploma folder like it might evaporate if I loosened my grip. When I finally reached my car, I sat inside without starting it. I just sat there. The silence was thick. My phone lay in my lap, screen dark, waiting. I thought about calling them. I imagined my mother's voice, cheerful, casual, like missing my ceremony was a minor scheduling mishap. I imagined my father in the background, making that little throat-clearing sound he always made when he didn't want to speak. And I knew if I called, I'd either explode or crumble. So instead, I opened my camera app. I took a selfie. Cap, gown. Diploma. Smile. It felt ridiculous. Like I was staging proof of my own life. But a part of me wanted it, a picture where I didn't look abandoned. A picture I could post, a picture I could send, a picture that said, "I did it anyway." Then I stared at that photo longer than I should have. Because behind my smile, my eyes looked older. Not older in years. Older in experience. Like someone who's learned to expect absence and still show up for herself. I swallowed hard and finally opened my mother's text again. "Hey baby, 2 hearts, congrats on graduating. We're so proud of you. Listen, can we talk later? Your dad and I need a small loan. Nothing crazy." The word "small loan" sat on my tongue like something bitter. Nothing crazy. My parents had a way of labeling things with soft, harmless language when they knew the truth was heavier. My mother called arguments little misunderstandings. My father called broken promises things that came up. And whenever money was involved, the word small was their favorite disguise. Small didn't mean small. Small meant don't ask questions. Small meant don't make this a big deal. Small meant be a good daughter and help us like you always do. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "Why weren't you there?" I erased it. I typed, "Are you okay?" I erased that too. I typed, "How much?" I stared at the words. Something about that question, how automatic it felt, made my stomach twist. Because I realized I didn't even need context to know my role. My job was to respond. To fix. To patch the hole. To give what they asked. The pattern was so familiar it almost felt like love. I didn't send anything. Instead, I drove. I didn't go home, my apartment felt too quiet, too small to hold what I was feeling. I drove through streets I knew too well, past storefronts and stoplights, past groups of people celebrating on sidewalks, until I ended up somewhere I hadn't planned. A diner. One of those old places with faded vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since morning. It was the kind of place my parents used to take me when I was a kid, back when they still pretended we were a normal family that did normal family things. I parked and sat for a minute, staring at the neon sign in the window. Then I went inside. The bell above the door chimed. The smell of grease and syrup hit me instantly. A waitress with tired eyes looked up and smiled politely. "Just you, honey." "Just me." "Yeah," I said, and the word felt heavier than it should have. She led me to a booth by the window. I slid into it, my gown bunching awkwardly. I took my cap off and placed it beside me like it was a fragile thing. The waitress set down a menu. "Coffee? Please." When she walked away, I stared at the menu without reading it. My phone buzzed again. My father this time. "Proud of you, kiddo. Call when you can." No mention of missing the ceremony. No apology. Just control. That subtle reminder that even when they were absent, the expectation remained, "You come to us." I looked outside. A family passed the window laughing, the graduate in the middle holding flowers. My chest tightened. I unlocked my phone and called my mother before I could change my mind. She picked up on the second ring, voice bright like she'd been waiting. "Baby. There you are. Oh my God, congratulations. I just know you looked beautiful up there." Up there. As if she'd seen it. As if she wasn't rewriting reality in real time. My fingers gripped the phone harder. "Where were you?" There was a pause, small, but noticeable. A pause where she had to decide which version of the truth to hand me. "Oh, you know, today just got away from us," she said lightly. "We had something come up." Something. I swallowed. What came up that was more important than my graduation? Her sigh was practiced. The kind of sigh that framed me as difficult for asking. "Don't do that," she said. "We're proud of you. You know we're proud of you. It's not like we wanted to miss it." "But you did," I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. Another pause. I could hear faint sounds in the background, a television, a cabinet closing, my father's voice somewhere distant, muted. "Listen," my mother said, softening, shifting gears. "We can talk about the ceremony later. Right now we need a little help. Just to get through something." There it was. The pivot. The way she tucked my pain into a drawer without even looking at it. "How much?" I asked, and the moment the words left my mouth, shame washed over me. She hesitated like she was calculating how far she could push. "Not a lot," she said quickly. "Just a few thousand." "A few thousand." My throat tightened again. "That's not small." "It is small compared to what it could be," she replied, almost defensive. "And we wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Important enough to miss my graduation." Her tone sharpened. "You're being dramatic." I stared at the diner table, at the small cracks in the laminate, at the little sugar packets stacked like tiny bricks. "Tell me what happened," I said. "What is this about?" My mother exhaled like I was forcing her hand. It's about the house," she said. "The house." The word landed like a stone. Because that house was a symbol. Not of warmth. Not of safety. But of secrecy. I grew up in that house. I learned to read tension in those walls. I learned to recognize when my parents were hiding something by the way they suddenly got polite with each other, by the way they turned the TV up louder, by the way my mother cleaned aggressively like she could scrub away truth. What about the house? I asked. She lowered her voice. We're behind. Behind on what? My mind started racing. Mortgage. Taxes. Bills. My parents were always behind on something, but they usually handled it with denial and borrowed time. How behind? I asked. Her answer came out too fast. Just behind enough that we need help right now. That urgency made my skin prickle. Because my mother didn't do urgency unless the situation was already past saving. And the way she said right now, like my graduation was already over, like my moment was already gone, like now it was time to deal with the real problem, lit something cold inside me. I stared out the window again. A thought arrived uninvited, clear as a whisper. What if this isn't the first time they've used you to fix their mess? And then another thought, darker. What if the mess is bigger than money? My mother kept talking, words flowing in that familiar river of persuasion. We're family, it's temporary, we'll pay you back, you know we would do it for you. But I wasn't hearing her the same way anymore. I was hearing the empty seats. I was hearing the silence where pride should have been. I was hearing the way she'd called it small. Mom, I interrupted. She stopped. My heart pounded. How much exactly? A beat. Then she said it. 8,000. I felt my entire body go still. $8,000 wasn't just money. 8,000 was rent and groceries and breathing room. 8,000 was the difference between stability and panic. I don't have 8,000, I said. You do, she replied immediately, like she'd already decided. You've been saving. You always save. You're responsible. There it was again. The way she praised me only when it benefited her. The way my responsibility became their safety net. I'm responsible, I repeated slowly, tasting the words. Or I'm convenient. Don't start, she warned, voice tightening. I could feel something shifting in me, not anger exactly, but clarity. A cold, clean focus. Did you miss my graduation because you were dealing with this? I asked. Yes, she said, too quickly again. I didn't believe her. Not fully. Because if it was really just money, why did her voice sound like fear? And why had my father texted me like nothing happened? I lowered my voice, even though no one around me was listening. Mom, are you in trouble? She didn't answer right away. And in that silence, that single, stretched out second, I felt the first real thread of mystery tighten around my life. Because my mother was a liar when she was cornered. But she was also good at lying. So if she was hesitating, it meant the truth was either too big to shape quickly. Or too dangerous to say out loud. Mom, I repeated, softer. What's going on? Her voice came back forced bright, too controlled. Nothing is going on. We just need help. Can you do it or not? I stared at my reflection in the diner window, a woman in a graduation gown, hair slightly frizzed under cap-pressed braids, eyes sharper than they were this morning. I thought about the empty seats. About how they celebrated me only when it was convenient. About how my milestones were treated like background noise. And I realized something that made my hands start to tremble. If I sent them $8,000, I'd be paying for my own absence. I'd be telling them, without words, that they could keep doing this. But if I refused, I didn't know what they would do. Because my parents didn't handle no well. They handled it like betrayal. I swallowed. I need to think, I said. My mother's voice sharpened instantly. Think about helping your own parents. After everything we've done for you. There it was. The guilt, sharpened into a blade. I closed my eyes for a moment, and in the darkness behind my lids, I saw those 3 empty seats again. Then I opened my eyes. Text me the details, I said. What it's for. Who it's owed to. Everything. A long pause. That's not necessary, she said quickly. My skin prickled again. It is if you want my money, I said, surprising even myself. Her breath caught, just slightly. And I knew. I knew there was something they weren't telling me. Something that didn't fit inside the phrase small loan. Something that made them choose secrecy over showing up for me. My mother's voice dropped into something colder. Fine, she said. I'll send it. I ended the call, hands shaking, and only then realized I'd been holding my breath. The waitress arrived with coffee and asked if I was ready to order. I looked up at her, trying to anchor myself. Yeah, I said, forcing steadiness. Yeah, I'll take pancakes. She smiled and walked away. I stared at my phone, waiting. And as the screen lit up with a new message from my mother, my pulse spiked so hard it made my ears ring. Because it wasn't a bank account number. It was an address. Not theirs. An unfamiliar address across town. With a single line underneath. Go there if you want to understand. My throat went dry. I read it again. Then again. My mother never sent me on errands for understanding. She sent me on errands when she needed someone else to carry the weight of whatever she dropped. Outside, the sun was still bright, the world still celebrating. But inside me, something was turning. Something slow. Something inevitable. And the most terrifying part wasn't that my parents needed money. It was the feeling that they had been hiding something for a long time. And today, the day I should have been protected, celebrated, seen, was the day they finally decided to hand it to me. If you're feeling that chill right now, leave a like, not because it helps me, but because it tells me you're still here, breathing through this with me. I stared at the address until the letters started to blur. It wasn't their house. That was the first thing my mind clung to, the easiest thing to process. Not their familiar street. Not the cracked sidewalk I'd memorized as a child. Not the place where every bad memory still somehow smelled like home. This was across town. An industrial area, if my mental map was right. Warehouses. Auto shops. Streets that emptied out after dark. Places you didn't casually send your daughter unless you wanted her to feel uneasy. Go there if you want to understand. My mother had never spoken to me like that before. Not directly. Not with mystery sharpened into a challenge. Understanding was never something she offered. She offered conclusions. Instructions. Expectations. But not understanding. I wrapped my hands around the coffee mug the waitress had just set down in front of me. The heat grounded me, pulled me back into my body. My fingers were trembling. I typed back. What is this place? 3 dots appeared immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. My chest tightened with each second that passed. Finally. Just go. It's easier if you see it yourself. That was when I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't small. I paid my bill, left the diner without tasting the pancakes I'd ordered, and sat back in my car. I stared at the address again, then typed it into my GPS. 15 minutes. 15 minutes between the woman I'd been that morning, hopeful, proud, still believing my parents would eventually show up, and whoever I was about to become. As I drove, memories surfaced without my permission. little moments. Fractured scenes. My parents whispering late at night, stopping abruptly when I entered the room. Mail my mother snatched too quickly from the mailbox. The way my father flinched whenever unknown numbers appeared on his phone. At the time, I'd told myself every family had secrets. Every adult had stress they didn't share with their kids. But I wasn't a kid anymore. And today, of all days, the truth felt like it had teeth. The neighborhood shifted as I drove, less residential, more concrete. Buildings grew wider, lower. Fewer windows. Fewer people. My GPS announced, "You have arrived," in a calm, cheerful voice that felt wildly inappropriate. I parked across the street. The building was gray. Unmarked. No sign. No business name. Just a steel door and a narrow strip of tinted glass. The kind of place you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it. My heart hammered as I got out of the car. Every instinct told me not to go in. But another voice, quieter, steadier, reminded me that I'd already spent my life cleaning up after things I didn't fully understand. Avoiding truth hadn't protected me before. I crossed the street and stood in front of the door. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled like disinfectant and metal. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The room was divided by a thick glass partition, like a bank or a courthouse. Behind it sat a man in a pressed shirt, typing calmly at a computer. He looked up when he saw me. "Can I help you?" My mouth felt dry. I'm looking for information." He tilted his head slightly. "About?" I swallowed. "This address was sent to me." Understanding flickered across his face, quick, controlled. "Name?" he asked. I told him. His fingers paused on the keyboard. That pause lasted less than a second. But it was enough. He looked at me differently after that. Not surprised. Not confused. Careful. "I'll need you to take a seat," he said. The waiting area was small. Cold. 2 chairs bolted to the floor. A security camera in the corner. I sat. Time stretched. My phone buzzed. A message from my father this time. "Did you talk to your mom?" I didn't reply. The man behind the glass returned with a folder. He didn't slide it to me. He didn't open it. He just said, "Before we continue, I need to ask, did they tell you anything?" My pulse spiked. "Tell me what?" He exhaled slowly through his nose. "No," he said quietly. "I guess they didn't." The room felt suddenly smaller. "Please," I said. "Just tell me why I'm here." He studied me for a moment, my cap tucked under my arm, my gown still on, like a costume from a different life. "Your parents are behind on a private loan," he said. "Not a bank. Not a mortgage." My stomach twisted. "How behind?" "Enough that it escalated." Escalated. The word echoed. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," he said carefully, "that the original amount has grown. Interest. Penalties. Enforcement fees." "Enforcement?" My voice came out thin. He slid the folder under the glass. "Your parents borrowed $40,000. I felt dizzy. "That's impossible," I said automatically. "They would have told me." He didn't react. "They didn't," he said simply. I stared at the number printed on the paper. My mind refused to absorb it. 40,000. This wasn't mismanagement. This was a secret life. "They're behind by 22,000, he continued. "The 8,000 your mother mentioned would stop the next step." "What step?" I asked, already knowing I didn't want the answer. He met my eyes. Asset seizure, he said. And potentially, legal action. My breath caught. You mean the house? Yes. The house. Suddenly, everything clicked, the fear in my mother's voice, the urgency, the address instead of an explanation. They used me, I whispered. He didn't correct me. They used your name once already, he added. My head snapped up. What do you mean? They listed you as a secondary contact. Not a co-signer, he clarified. But as someone we could reach if communication failed. I felt sick. They had planned this. They had counted on me. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. I need copies of everything. He nodded like he'd expected that. Of course. As he turned away, my phone buzzed again. A message from my mother. Did you go? No concern. No apology. Just confirmation. I typed back with shaking fingers. You lied to me. 3 dots appeared instantly. I protected you. I laughed, a short, hollow sound that startled even me. Protected me, from what? From the truth. From their consequences. From realizing that my love had always been collateral. The man returned with papers. Dates. Amounts. Signatures. My parents' names. Over and over. I gathered the documents like they were evidence from a crime scene. Because that's what this felt like. A crime, not just financial, but emotional. I walked out of the building into the sunlight, the papers clutched to my chest. The world looked unchanged. Cars passed. People lived. But something fundamental inside me had cracked open. I sat in my car and called my mother. She answered immediately. So now you understand, she said, like this was a lesson. No, I replied, my voice steady in a way it had never been with her before. Now I see. Silence. I won't give you the money, I said. Her breath caught. You can't do that. I can, I said. And I am. Her voice hardened. If you don't help us, you'll be the reason we lose everything. I looked at my diploma folder on the passenger seat. The day they didn't show up. The day they asked for money instead of offering pride. You lost me first, I said quietly. I ended the call before she could respond. And as I sat there, hands shaking, I realized this wasn't just about refusing a loan. This was about deciding whether I would keep paying for their secrets. Or finally make them face the cost themselves. I sat in my car long after the call ended. My hands were still shaking, but my mind felt strangely clear, like something that had been pressing on me for years had finally shifted. Not lifted. Shifted. Moved just enough to let light in. The papers lay scattered on the passenger seat. Numbers. Dates. Signatures. Proof. Proof that my parents hadn't just failed me emotionally, they had planned around me. Built a safety net out of my reliability. My silence. My love. I folded the documents carefully and placed them back in the folder. My diploma sat on top of it, bright and official, like it belonged to a different life. I drove home slowly. Every red light felt longer. Every street looked sharper, more exposed. I kept expecting my phone to ring again, my mother calling back, my father stepping in, someone trying to soften what I'd just done. Nothing. When I got to my apartment, I kicked off my heels by the door and let my bag slide to the floor. The quiet hit me immediately. No roommates. No family. Just me and the hum of the refrigerator. I hung my gown over the back of a chair. It looked empty without me inside it. I poured a glass of water and drank it too fast, then sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. My body finally caught up to what my mind had been holding back. I started crying. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just tears sliding down my face, steady and unstoppable. I cried for the girl who learned early how to be low maintenance. For the woman who kept showing up even when no one came for her. For the moment I'd imagined my parents cheering, a moment that would never exist. And underneath all of it, something else surfaced. Anger. Not the explosive kind. The cold, slow kind that rearranges how you see people forever. My phone buzzed again an hour later. A text from my father. Your mother says you refuse to help. Call me. I stared at it. He hadn't asked if I was okay. Hadn't said congratulations. Hadn't acknowledged the day at all. Just, authority. I didn't call. Instead, I typed. I know about the loan. I know how much. I know you used me as a backup plan. Several minutes passed. Then. You don't understand how things work. I exhaled sharply. Then explain it. The phone rang immediately. I let it ring 3 times before answering. His voice was tense, clipped. You embarrassed us. That was the first thing he said. Not we're scared. Not we made a mistake. Not we're sorry. You embarrassed yourselves, I replied. You don't talk to me like that, he snapped. I almost laughed. Why? I asked calmly. Because you're my father. Or because you need my money. Silence. I pressed on before he could recover. You missed my graduation, I said. You didn't even apologize. You asked me for $8,000 and lied about why. You're being emotional, he said dismissively. No, I said. I'm being accurate. He inhaled sharply. That money could have solved everything. No, I corrected him. It would have delayed it. And you would have asked again. Another pause. You think you're better than us now? He asked. There it was. The real wound. Better? I repeated. No. I think I'm done being used. His voice dropped into something dangerous. If we lose the house, that's on you. I felt something snap into place inside me, not fear, not guilt. Boundaries. You already lost me, I said. You just didn't notice. I hung up. This time, my hands didn't shake. I slept badly that night. Dreams tangled with memory, empty seats, ringing phones, doors closing. I woke up with my jaw clenched and my heart racing. In the morning, sunlight streamed through my window like nothing had changed. But everything had. I made coffee and opened my laptop. I researched. Laws. Liability. Secondary contacts. I emailed the office from the day before, requesting confirmation that I held no legal responsibility. Their reply came fast. You are not financially liable. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by something darker. If I wasn't liable, then my parents had known exactly how much risk they were taking. They had gambled anyway. On me. The next few days passed in strange quiet. No calls. No texts. Social media filled with graduation photos from classmates, smiling families, proud captions. I didn't post mine. I didn't want to pretend. On the 4th day, my mother showed up at my apartment. I wasn't expecting it. The knock was soft at first. Then harder. I opened the door. She looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. Her eyes darted past me into the apartment, like she was already calculating something. You wouldn't answer, she said. You didn't listen, I replied. She stepped inside without asking. I did what I had to do, she said immediately. For this family. You did what was easiest, I said. And you made it my problem. Her face tightened. We raised you. You leaned on me, I corrected. There's a difference. She scoffed. So what, you're just going to abandon us? The word hit, abandon, heavy with manipulation. I took a breath. I'm stepping back. That's the same thing. No, I said. Abandonment is disappearing. This is me choosing not to drown with you. Her eyes filled with tears, real or strategic, I couldn't tell anymore. We're your parents, she whispered. And I was your child, I replied. And you still used me. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke softer. We didn't think you'd say no. I nodded. I know. That was the truth of it. She left shortly after. No resolution. No apology. Just the door closing gently behind her. I locked it. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. But freedom came with a cost. Because as the days passed, rumors started to reach me, relatives calling, distant cousins messaging, stories being shaped without my voice in them. I was cold. Ungrateful. Changed. Let them talk. Because the version of me they missed that day, the one walking across the stage alone, she was done being quiet. And something told me this wasn't the end of it. Not even close. If you're still here, still breathing through this shift, leave like, it tells me you're ready for what comes next. I found out what my parents were saying about me by accident. It was a message from my aunt, short, careful, pretending to be neutral. I know things are complicated right now, but your parents are really hurt. They didn't expect this from you. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. Didn't expect this from me. Not we're sorry. Not we made mistakes. Just disappointment, redirected, repackaged, placed neatly at my feet. More messages followed over the next few days. Family members I barely spoke to suddenly had opinions. Advice. Judgment. I was selfish. I'd changed. Money had made me cold. No one asked why my parents missed my graduation. No one asked why they lied. No one asked what it felt like to realize your biggest achievement ranked below a debt you never created. That's how I understood something important. They weren't telling the truth. They were telling a version where they were victims. And I was the problem. I didn't defend myself. Not at first. I watched. I listened. I paid attention. Because lies have patterns. And every story they told left something out, the address, the amount, the secrecy, the expectation that I would fix everything quietly. One night, I opened the folder again. The loan documents. The dates. The signatures. And something clicked. One of the dates was familiar. Too familiar. It matched a month from my sophomore year, the year my parents suddenly insisted I stay on campus during breaks. The year my mother started asking strange questions about my savings. The year my father became unusually interested in my credit score. My stomach dropped. They hadn't just planned around me recently. They'd been planning for years. I opened my laptop and started digging, emails, old messages, bank notifications. Patterns emerged slowly, like an image coming into focus. Small requests. Temporary help. Promises to pay me back that quietly dissolved into silence. It wasn't one loan. It was a system. And I was the backup plan. My phone buzzed again, this time from a cousin I trusted more than the others. Off the record, they're saying the house might already be gone. I felt my pulse spike. Already gone. That didn't match the timeline they gave me. Unless the $8,000 had never been about saving the house. Unless it was about buying time. Time to keep lying. Time to keep me in the dark. Time to shift blame when the truth finally surfaced. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. If the house was already gone, what exactly were they hiding now? And why did it feel like I was about to find out whether I liked it or not? I didn't ask my parents if the house was already gone. I didn't confront them. I didn't accuse them. I waited. Because when people are lying, they eventually reveal more than pretend truths, they reveal priorities. 2 days later, my father called again. This time, his voice was different. Not angry. Not authoritative. Desperate. "They're coming tomorrow," he said. "We just need a little more time." "Who is they?" I asked calmly. Another pause. That was answer enough. "So the house is gone," I said. Silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Yes," he finally admitted. "But that doesn't mean it's over." I closed my eyes. All that pressure. All that guilt. For something that had already been decided. "You knew," I said. "When you missed my graduation, you already knew." "We didn't want to ruin your day," he said quickly. I laughed, slow, bitter. "You didn't come at all." Another silence. And then the sentence that ended everything. "We thought you'd help anyway." There it was. Not love. Not pride. Expectation. I hung up without another word. That night, I packed a box. Not clothes. Not memories. Documents. Photos. Childhood papers. Things I wanted before everything else disappeared. The next morning, I drove to the house. Or what used to be the house. A notice was taped to the door. Windows dark. The lawn already looked neglected, like it knew. My parents weren't there. They hadn't told me where they were staying. But inside that silence, standing on the sidewalk where I learned to ride a bike, something finally settled. They didn't just lose the house. They lost access to me. And they hadn't even realized it yet. I didn't go to the ceremony photo shoot makeup-free, smiling with a fake peace. I went alone. I stood in front of the campus sign, diploma in hand, no audience, no parents, no performance. Just me. And for the first time, that felt honest. I posted the photo a week later. No caption about family. No gratitude speech. Just one sentence. Some milestones are witnessed only by the person who earned them. My parents didn't comment. They didn't like it. They didn't share it. But I noticed something else. They stopped calling. Not immediately. Slowly. Like people backing away from a door they can no longer open. Months passed. I built a life that didn't require explaining myself. I slept better. I breathed deeper. I stopped flinching when my phone rang. Sometimes I missed the idea of them. But not the version that needed me small, quiet, and available. I realized something important in the quiet. They didn't miss my graduation because they were busy. They missed it because they believed I'd always be there afterward. They were wrong. And that realization, painful, sharp, final, became the beginning of something better. Because the day they chose a small loan over me was the day I chose myself without asking permission. And I graduated twice. Once on that stage. And once from the role they never should have given me.